The ship dropped out of hyperspace, and Kim Tae saw Vora Prime for the first time. The planet hung in the void like a pale blue marble, surrounded by thousands of stations and ships from 100 different worlds. This was the heart of the Galactic Council, the place where 347 species had gathered for 12,000 years to rule the stars, and today, humanity would ask to join them. Tae stood at the viewing window of the diplomatic vessel, his hands clasped behind his back. He was 53 years old, with gray streaks in his black hair and deep lines around his eyes. He had spent his whole life preparing for this moment. 40 years ago, humans had discovered faster-than-light travel. They had spread across the stars, building colonies, fighting pirates, and surviving alone in a galaxy that did not care if they lived or died. Now, finally, they had been invited. Ambassador Park Yuna appeared at his side. She was younger than him by 20 years, sharp and quick, with short hair and steady eyes. She served as his second-in-command. The Council has approved our landing request. We dock in 1 hour. Tae nodded slowly. How is the team? Nervous, Yuna admitted. Commander Choi Han keeps checking his sidearm. Dr. Shin Nari has not slept in 2 days. And you? Yuna was quiet for a moment. I keep thinking about what my grandmother told me. She was born before we reached the stars. She said that when she was young, humans used to dream about meeting aliens. They imagined it would be magical. A moment of wonder. She looked out at the countless ships surrounding Vora Prime. This does not feel magical. It feels like walking into a room where everyone already decided they do not like you. A turned to face her. Your grandmother was wise. But she was also wrong about one thing. We are not here to be liked. We are here to be respected. The docking went smoothly. The human delegation stepped off their ship and onto the crystalline floors of the sea. Galactic Assembly Hall. The architecture was beyond anything on Earth. The walls were made of living crystal that glowed with soft light. The ceilings rose so high they disappeared into mist. Thousands of aliens moved through the vast corridors, speaking languages that human translators struggled to understand. Tae led his team forward. Behind him walked Yuna, Commander Choi Han, in his military dress uniform, and Dr. Shin Nari, carrying a data tablet filled with everything humanity had to offer. They were met by a Varani guide, a tall, insectoid creature with 4 arms and compound eyes that glittered like black diamonds. I am called Keth, the Varani said. Its voice was a series of clicks translated by a small device on its chest. I will escort you to the main chamber. The council is waiting. Thank you, Tae said, with a small bow. Keth did not return the gesture. It simply turned and began walking. The main chamber was enormous. Rows of seats rose up in a great circle filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Some were humanoid, others were not. Tae saw creatures made of living metal, beings of pure light, and things that looked like plants, stones, and nightmares. At the center of the chamber was a raised platform where the delegation would stand to present their petition. As they walked to the platform, Tae heard whispers. He did not understand all the languages, but he understood the tone, curiosity, amusement, mockery. A gelatinous blue creature rippled in what might have been laughter. So small, it said, its translator picking up the words. They are so very small. Han's jaw tightened. Nari looked down at her tablet. Yuna kept her eyes forward. Tae climbed the steps to the platform and faced the council. At the highest seat sat Lord Voss, the Dramari High Speaker. He was a giant, nearly 3 meters tall, with gray skin, 4 powerful arms, and eyes like burning coals. He had ruled this chamber for 2 centuries. His voice boomed across the room. The Galactic Council recognizes the delegation from the species known as humans. You may speak. Tae took a breath. High Speaker, honored council members, I am Ambassador Kim Tae, representing the United Terran Republic. For 40 years, humanity has explored the stars alone. We have built colonies on 60 worlds. We have established trade with independent species outside your borders. We have defended our people against pirates, raiders, and natural disasters. He paused, letting his words settle. We come before you not as beggars, but as potential partners. We offer trade, technology exchange, and mutual defense. In return, we ask for membership in this council, a voice, a seat at the table. Nothing more, nothing less. Silence filled the chamber. Then Keth spoke. Your species has been spacefaring for 40 years. The Varani have sailed the stars for 9,000. What could you possibly offer us? Innovation, Tay said. Fresh perspectives. Different ways of thinking. The Elmari representative, Consul Bryn, wobbled with amusement. Fresh perspectives. You are children. Infants crying in the dark. We are survivors, Tay replied calmly. Lord Voss raised one massive hand. Enough. The council will hear your petition in full. You will have 3 days to present your case. But I must tell you, Ambassador, that in 12,000 years, no species has been granted membership in less than 2 centuries of observation. He leaned forward, his burning eyes fixed on Tay. You are asking us to make an exception for a species that has barely learned to walk among the stars. Tay met his gaze without flinching. Then we will show you what humanity can do in 3 days. Voss smiled. It was not a kind smile. We shall see. As the delegation was escorted to their quarters, Yuna walked beside Tay. They are going to reject us, she said quietly. They decided before we even arrived, probably, Tay admitted. Then why are we here? Tay stopped walking. He looked back at the great chamber, at the ancient crystal walls, at the countless alien faces that had already dismissed them, because they need to see who we are, he said. Not for their sake. For ours. Whatever happens in that chamber, humanity will remember this moment. We will remember that we stood before the galaxy and did not bow. Yuna considered this. And if they laugh at us? Tay smiled grimly. Then we give them something to remember. The first day was bad. The second day was worse. By the third day, Commander Choi Han wanted to hit something. He stood in the observation gallery above the main chamber, watching as yet another council species took the floor to explain why humans were unworthy of membership. His fists were clenched so tight his knuckles had turned white. They sleep for 8 hours every day, the Varani delegate Keth was saying. 8 hours. A third of their existence, wasted in unconsciousness. How can such a species contribute anything of value? Laughter rolled through the chamber. Han turned away from the window. This is pointless. They have already made up their minds. Dr. Shinnari sat nearby, her tablet in her lap. She had stopped taking notes hours ago. They asked me about human medicine yesterday, she said quietly. I explained our advances in gene therapy, cancer treatment, organ regeneration. The Elmari delegate said our medicine was, and I quote, barely functional compared to species that have been practicing for millennia. What did you say? Nothing. What could I say? They are right. Compared to species that have existed for thousands of years, we are behind in almost everything. She looked up at Han. But that is not the point, is it? We are not asking them to admire us. We are asking them to give us a chance. They do not want to give us a chance, Han said. They want us to bow, to accept whatever scraps they throw at us and be grateful. Down in the chamber, Ambassador Kimte sat in the human section, his face calm and unreadable. Park Yuna was beside him, whispering something. Tay nodded slightly but did not react to the insults being thrown at his species. The Dramari delegate, military commander named General Vorn, was speaking now. Human soldiers require constant supplies, food, water, rest. They cannot fight for more than a few hours without stopping. In any prolonged engagement, they would be a liability, not an asset. Consul Bryn wobbled in agreement. Perhaps they could serve as support staff. Cooks, cleaners, something suited to their limitations. More laughter. Han felt his blood boil. He had commanded human soldiers in 3 border conflicts. He had watched men and women fight through pain, exhaustion, and fear to protect their homes. And now these creatures who had never seen a human in combat were calling his people weak. I need air, he said, and walked out of the gallery. He found a balcony overlooking the city below. Vora Prime was beautiful in a cold, alien way. Crystal towers stretched toward the sky. Ships moved through the air like fish through water. Everything was ancient and perfect and utterly indifferent to humanity. Yuna found him there an hour later. "The final session is about to begin," she said. "The ambassador wants everyone present." Han did not turn around. "What is the point?" "They are going to reject us." "Yes, they are." Yuna moved to stand beside him. "But the ambassador says we need to hear it. We need to see their faces when they do it." "Why?" "So we can remember how much they hate us. So we can remember that we tried." Akuna's voice was firm. "And so they can remember how we responded." Han finally looked at her. "You sound like him." "I have been listening to him for 10 years. Some of it was bound to stick." She smiled slightly. "Come on, Commander. 1 more hour. Then we can go home." The final session was held in the Great Chamber. Every seat was filled. Representatives from all 347 council species had gathered to witness the verdict. At the center of the chamber, Ambassador Kim Tae stood alone on the platform. Lord Voss rose from his throne. The chamber fell silent. "The Galactic Council has reviewed the petitions submitted by the species known as humans," Voss said. His voice echoed off the crystal walls. "We have examined your history, your technology, your biology, and your culture. We have listened to your arguments and considered your offers." He paused, letting the moment stretch. "Our conclusion is as follows. Humanity is not ready for full membership in this council. Your species is too young, too limited, and too primitive to participate as equals." Murmurs of approval rippled through the chamber. "However," Voss continued, "we are not without mercy. We offer humanity the status of observer. You may attend council sessions without voting rights. You may trade with council species under strict regulations. You will not receive military protection, but you will be permitted to exist within our borders." He smiled, and it was the smile of someone who expected gratitude. "In exchange, humanity will pay an annual tribute to the council. This tribute will be set at 15% of your gross interstellar product. You will also provide labor forces for council projects as needed." Not felt his stomach drop. They were not offering partnership. They were offering slavery with polite words. "This is the council's final offer," Voss said. "Do you accept?" For a long moment, Tay said nothing. He looked around the chamber at the hundreds of faces staring down at him. Some were curious. Some were amused. A few looked almost sympathetic. Then he spoke. "May I respond?" "If you must," Voss said dismissively. Tay straightened his shoulders. "Hi, Speaker. Council members. We came here in good faith. We asked for nothing more than a fair chance to prove ourselves. In return, you have mocked us, insulted us, and dismissed everything we have built." His voice grew stronger. "You call us young. Yes, we are young. But we have done in 40 years what many species could not do in thousands. You call us limited. Yes, we have limitations. But we have learned to overcome them in ways you cannot imagine. You call us primitive, perhaps, but primitives can learn. Primitives can grow. Primitives can surprise you." He took a step forward. "You offer us observer status? You offer us the privilege of watching while you make decisions that affect our future. You offer us the honor of paying tribute for the right to exist in space that belongs to no one." Tay shook his head. "Slowly, humanity declines." The chamber went completely silent. "We withdraw our petition," Tay continued. "We will not pay tribute. We will not provide labor. We will not accept crumbs from your table and call it generosity." Lord Voss's eyes narrowed. "You would reject the council's protection? You would stand alone?" "We have always stood alone," Tay said. "We will continue to stand. And when you look for us among the stars, you will not find beggars waiting for your approval. You will find a species that chose its own path." He turned to his delegation. "We are leaving." And with that, Kim Tae walked off the platform, through the silent chamber, and out the great doors. His team followed. No one tried to stop them. As they boarded their ship, Yuna looked back at the crystal spires of the assembly hall. They will be angry, she said. They will try to punish us. Tay nodded. Probably. What do we do now? The ambassador looked out at the stars. Now we show them what humanity can do without their help. 5 years passed and the humans vanished. At first, the Galactic Council did not notice. They had more important matters to discuss. Trade agreements, border disputes, the endless politics of 347 species trying to share the same galaxy. The humans were a small species from a small corner of space. Their rejection of the Council's offer was considered amusing at first, then annoying, then simply forgotten. Consul Bryn made jokes about them at parties. The little creatures thought they could survive alone, the Elmari would say, wobbling with laughter. By now, they have probably eaten each other. Lord Voss dismissed them entirely. They will return within a decade, he predicted, begging for scraps. It is always the same with young species. Pride before practicality. But the decade came, and the humans did not return. Instead, they disappeared. Human colonies went dark on Council sensors. Trade ships stopped appearing at border stations. The few human merchants who had been operating in Council space quietly closed their businesses and left without explanation. Communication channels went silent. Embassies were abandoned. It was as if humanity had simply ceased to exist. Keth, the Varani delegate, was the first to grow concerned. He brought his worries to the Council's Intelligence Committee. Something is wrong, he said. We have not detected a single human vessel in 18 months. Their colonies are shielded somehow. Our probes cannot penetrate their space. Perhaps they have destroyed themselves, suggested General Vorn. Civil war, plague, these things happen to young species. Perhaps Keth agreed, but I do not think so. The silence is too complete, too organized. This is not collapse. This is concealment. The committee dismissed his concerns. The humans were too primitive to hide from Council sensors. They were probably just licking their wounds in their little corner of the galaxy, too ashamed to show their faces. Then the reports began. It started with pirates. The Outer Rim had always been plagued by raider fleets that preyed on merchant ships and small colonies. They were a nuisance, but the Council had never considered them worth the effort to eliminate. They simply existed, like rats in a warehouse. But now, the pirates were dying, a Dromari merchant captain reported. Seeing the aftermath of a battle near the Velen Drift, dozens of pirate ships destroyed. No survivors. No distress calls. No one claimed responsibility. Then it happened again. And again. Intelligence officer Beekyun worked for Earth's Stellar Command. She was stationed on a hidden base deep in unclaimed space, and her job was to track the Council's reactions to humanity's disappearance. She compiled the reports with quiet satisfaction. Another raider fleet eliminated near Sector 47, she told Admiral Lee Day. The Varani are confused. They think it might be a new predator species. Day smiled grimly. The Admiral was 60 years old, with a scarred face and prosthetic left arm. He had lost the original arm in a border skirmish 20 years ago. He had been fighting his whole life, and now he was building the force that would ensure humanity never had to beg again. What about the new trade routes? He asked. Operational, Yoon replied. We have established contact with 11 species outside Council borders. The Cathani are particularly interested in our medical technology. The Shoran want agricultural equipment. The Velton want weapons. And our fleet? 300 capital ships. 1,200 support vessels. We are producing 50 new ships every month. Day nodded slowly. When humanity had walked away from the Council, they had nothing but hope and determination. 5 years of focused effort had changed everything. While the Council laughed and forgot about them, humans had been working, building, growing, they had discovered new hyperspace lanes that bypassed Council-controlled territory. They had forged alliances with species the Council had never bothered to contact. They had reverse-engineered captured technology and improved upon it. They had turned their weaknesses into strengths. Humans needed sleep. So they designed ships with rotating crews that never stopped. Humans got tired. So they developed combat stimulants and powered armor that kept soldiers fighting. Humans were fragile, so they built machines to protect them. The Council thought humanity was dying in the dark. Humanity is preparing for the future. On Earth, President Omina addressed the United Terran Assembly. 5 years ago, we were humiliated, she said. We went to the Council as friends and were treated as servants. We were told we were too young, too weak, too primitive to matter. She looked out at the assembled representatives from 60 human worlds. They were wrong. She activated a holographic display showing human-controlled space. It had grown by 40% since the Council rejection. New colonies, new stations, new shipyards. We're not begging anymore, Mina continued. We are not waiting for permission to exist. We are building our own future. And when the galaxy finally notices us again, they will not see beggars, they will see equals. Admiral Day watched the speech from his command ship, the Terran Pride. Beside him stood Captain Yunjina, one of the youngest captains in the fleet. She was 32 years old, brilliant, and absolutely fearless. Do you think the Council will ever notice us? She asked. Day considered the question. Eventually, something will happen. A crisis. A war. Something that forces them to look beyond their borders. And when they do, they will see what we have built. And then we find out what kind of species we really are. Day turned to face her. The Council will need us someday. When that day comes, we will have a choice. We can take revenge for how they treated us. Or we can prove that we are better than them. Gina frowned. After everything they did, all the mockery, the insults, especially after that. Day's voice was quiet but firm. Anyone can be cruel when they have power. It takes something more to be kind. That is what I want humanity to be. The species that could have taken revenge but chose not to? That sounds idealistic. Maybe, but ideals are what separates civilization from savagery. He smiled slightly. Besides, nothing would confuse them more than humans being decent. I would pay good money to see Lord Voss's face when we help him after everything he said about us. Shh. Gina laughed despite herself. You are a strange man, Admiral. I am a human. We are all strange. He turned back to the viewport. Now let us get back to work. The future will not build itself. In the council chamber on Vora Prime, Keth continued to present his findings. His compound eyes were troubled. The humans have not collapsed, he insisted. They have grown. I do not know how much or how fast, but they are out there, building, preparing. Lord Voss waved a massive hand dismissively. Preparing for what? To challenge us? With what army? What technology? I do not know, Keth admitted. But I think we will find out. And I think we will not like the answer. Voss laughed. The whole council laughed. They would not be laughing for much longer. The Wraith Swarm came from beyond the galactic rim, from the dark spaces between stars where nothing was supposed to live. They were nightmares made flesh. Biomechanical horrors with bodies of metal and organic tissue fused together. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply consumed. No one knew where they came from. Some said they were an ancient weapon left over from a war fought before the council existed. Others said they were a natural phenomenon, a predator species that had evolved to eat civilizations. It did not matter. What mattered was that they were awake, and they were hungry. The first attack hit the outer territories without warning. The Elmari colony on Veth Prime sent a distress signal at midnight, local time. By dawn, every living thing on the planet was dead. 40 million people, gone. The Wraith ships descended like locusts, stripping the world of resources before moving on. 3 more colonies fell in the first week. Consul. Bryn stopped making jokes. The gelatinous Elmari had lost 6 worlds in a month. Millions of its people were dead or fleeing toward the core systems. In the council chamber, Bryn sat silent and shaking. Unable to process the scale of the disaster, the Varani fared no better. Their military had not fought a real war in centuries. They had fancy ships and advanced weapons, but no experience. At the Battle of Nexus Point, a Varani fleet of 200 ships engaged the swarm. 12 survived. Keth brought the report to the council personally. His compound eyes were dim with grief. "They adapt," he said, his voice clicking with barely controlled emotion. "Our weapons work once. Then they change. They learn. They become immune. We cannot fight an enemy that evolves faster than we can think." Lord Voss slammed his fist on his throne. "Then we hit them harder. The Dromari High Fleet is the largest armada in council space. 3,000 ships. We will crush them with numbers." General Vorn led the fleet himself. He was confident, proud. He had commanded the Dromari military for 50 years, had never lost a battle. He lost this one. The Battle of the Azure Rift lasted 3 days. When it was over, the Dromari High Fleet was scattered debris floating in the void. General Vorn's flagship was found adrift, its hull torn open, its crew gone. There were no bodies. The swarm had taken them. Panic spread through council space. Species that had been allies for millennia turned on each other, fighting for places on evacuation ships. The Varani sealed their borders. The Elmari retreated to their homeworld. The Dromari tried to negotiate with the swarm did not answer. The swarm just kept coming. Lord Voss sat in his throne. Alone in the great chamber that had once held hundreds of representatives, most of the seats were empty now. Some species had fled. Others had been consumed. The crystal walls that had glowed with soft light for 12,000 years were dark and cold. He had no choice. He activated the emergency broadcast system and spoke to every ship, every station, every world in known space. "This is High Speaker Voss of the Galactic Council. We are facing extinction. Our fleets are destroyed. Our colonies are burning. We cannot stop the enemy alone." His voice cracked. "To all spacefaring species, council member or not, we request aid. We beg for help. If anyone can hear this message, please respond. The council is willing to offer anything, everything. Just help us survive." The message went out into the void. Silence answered. Hours passed, then days. The swarm continued its advance, consuming world after world. The council's remaining forces fell back to the core systems, preparing for a last stand that everyone knew they would lose. Then, on the third day, a transmission cut through the static. Admiral Lee Day's face appeared on every screen in council space. He was older now, his hair completely gray, his face lined with years of hard work. Behind him, through the viewport of his command ship, the stars were filled with vessels. Thousands of them. Sleek and deadly. Human ships. "This is Admiral Lee Day of the Terran Republic Combined Fleet. We received your distress call." Lord Voss nearly fell from his throne. Around him, the few remaining council members stared at the screen in disbelief. "Humans," Voss whispered. "The humans came," Day continued speaking. "5 years ago, we came to you in peace. We asked for partnership. You laughed at us. You called us children. You offered us slavery and called it generosity." His voice was calm but hard as steel. "We remember." Voss felt his heart sink. Of course, the humans had come to gloat. To watch the council burn? He could not blame them. "But we also remember something else," Day said. "We remember that we are not like you. We do not abandon others to die, even those who wronged us. We do not take pleasure in suffering, even the suffering of those who mocked us." He leaned forward. "So here is what is going to happen. My fleet will engage the swarm. We will buy you time to evacuate your civilians. We will fight alongside any council forces willing to stand with us. We ask nothing in return. No tribute. No apology. No admission of guilt." Captain Yunjina appeared beside him on the screen. "Admiral, the fleet is in position."
I nodded.
"All ships, this is the Admiral. Today we fight for more than ourselves. Today, we fight for species that hated us, for worlds that rejected us, for a galaxy that thought we were nothing." He smiled grimly. Let us show them what nothing can do. All ships engage. The Terran combined fleet swept into battle like a storm. Human ships were different from Council vessels. They were faster, more maneuverable. Built by engineers who had spent 5 years studying swarm tactics and designing counters. Where Council weapons failed after one use, human weapons adapted. Where Council shields fell to swarm attacks, human ships dodged and weaved, refusing to be easy targets. And the humans did not stop. Council species needed rest. Humans rotated crews in shifts, keeping their ships fighting around the clock. Council soldiers broke under pressure. Human Marines, wrapped in powered armor and driven by combat stimulants, fought for hours without pause. Council commanders hesitated. Human officers made decisions in seconds and executed them without doubt. The swarm had never faced anything like this. Admiral Day commanded the battle from the bridge of the Terran Pride, his orders crisp and clear. Beside him, Captain Gina coordinated the fighter wings, her voice never wavering even as human pilots died around her. Third wave, coming in from the starboard flank, she reported. Heavy casualties in Striker Group 7. Redirect Reserve Group 2 to support them. Tell the Varani ships to fall back to defensive positions. The Varani are refusing to retreat, sir. They say it would be shameful. Day's jaw tightened. Then they will die for nothing. Tell them shame is for the living. The dead do not care about pride. The battle raged for 18 hours. Human ships fell. Human soldiers died. But for every human vessel destroyed, 3 swarm ships went with it. And slowly, possibly, the swarm began to retreat. Not defeated, not destroyed, but hurt, confused, for the first time. They had encountered prey that fought back effectively, as the last swarm ships fled into hyperspace. Admiral Day looked out at the battlefield. Debris from 1,000 ships floated in the void. Human and alien alike. Casualty report, he said quietly. 247 ships lost, Gina replied. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wet. 18,000 personnel confirmed dead. Another 6,000 missing, and the Council forces, 40% casualties. But the civilians got out. The evacuation was successful. Day closed his eyes for a moment. 18,000 humans dead. Sons and daughters. Brothers and sisters. All gone. Fighting for people who had treated them like garbage. Was it worth it? Gina asked softly. Day opened his eyes. On the screens around him, messages were flooding in from Council species. Gratitude, shock, disbelief. The Elmari were offering supplies. The Varani were asking for an alliance. Even Lord Voss had sent a personal message. Ask me when the war's over, Day said. For now, we have work to do. The swarm will be back, and we need to be ready. The war lasted 2 years. 2 years of blood and fire and death. 2 years of battles across 100 star systems. 2 years of sacrifice that no one had expected and few had believed possible. Humanity paid the price in full. Admiral Lee Day fell at the siege of Vora Prime. The swarm had launched a final, desperate assault on the Council's capital world, hoping to decapitate the alliance that had formed against them. Day's fleet held the line for 9 days, buying time for reinforcements to arrive. On the 9th day, a swarm hive ship broke through the defensive perimeter. It was heading straight for the civilian evacuation zone, where 3 million refugees waited for transport. Day ordered his flagship to intercept. The Terran Pride rammed the hive ship at full speed. Both vessels were destroyed. Captain Yungina took command of the fleet. She was 34 years old, exhausted, grieving, and absolutely determined to finish what Day had started. The Admiral did not die so we could lose, she told her officers. He died so we could win. Now let us make his sacrifice mean something. She led the counterattack herself. Her carrier, the Dawn of Terra, became the tip of the spear that drove the swarm back from Vora Prime. When a second hive ship threatened to overwhelm the Allied forces, Gina made the same choice Day had made. She pointed her ship at the enemy and did not turn away. The Dawn of Terra struck the hive ship's reactor core. The explosion destroyed both vessels and crippled the swarm fleet. Without their command ship, remaining swarm forces fell into confusion. The Allies did not waste the opportunity. The final battle took place in the Ashfall Nebula, where the last Swarm Queen had hidden her brood. A combined fleet of human Varani, Dramari, and Elmari ships surrounded the nebula. They fought for 3 weeks. Pushing deeper and deeper into the heart of the swarm, Commander Choi Han led the ground assault on the Queen's nest. He was 60 years old now, gray and scarred, but he had refused to retire. This was what he had trained his whole life for. The fighting was brutal. The tunnels beneath the asteroid were filled with swarm warriors, each one a killing machine designed by millions of years of evolution. Human Marines fell by the dozens, but they did not stop. Han reached the Queen's chamber with only 17 soldiers left from a force of 500. The Queen was massive, a mountain of flesh and metal, surrounded by her guards. She screamed at them in a language no translator could understand. Han raised his weapon. "Humanity sends its regards," he said, and fired. The Queen died. The swarm died with her. Without their guiding intelligence, the remaining creatures went mad, attacking each other, attacking their own ships, destroying themselves in mindless fury. The war was over. Ambassador Kim Tae returned to the Galactic Assembly Hall 1 year later. He walked the same crystalline corridors he had walked 7 years before, but everything was different now. The walls were cracked and scarred from orbital bombardment. Many of the ancient decorations had been destroyed. The hall was half empty, but it was rebuilding. Tae entered the main chamber. His team followed behind him. Park Yuna was still at his side, gray in her hair now, lines around her eyes. Dr. Shin Nari walked slowly, leaning on a cane. She had been injured in a swarm attack on a medical station. Commander Choi Han was in a wheelchair, his legs lost in the final assault on the Queen's nest. Intelligence Officer Baek Yoon pushed his chair, her own face marked by burns from an engine explosion. They were what remained of the original delegation. The ones who had survived? Lord Voss rose from his throne as they approached. The Dromari High Speaker had aged decades in 2 years. His gray skin was wrinkled, his forearms trembled, and his burning eyes had dimmed. He had lost everything in this war. His fleet, his generals, his pride, but he was still standing. Ambassador Kim Tae Voss said. His voice was quiet, nothing like the booming arrogance of 7 years ago. Humanity has returned. We have. Tae agreed. You came to save us when you had every reason to let us die. You bled for us when we had given you nothing but mockery. Your admiral sacrificed himself for our capital. Your captain gave her life for our people. Voss paused, struggling with the words. We were wrong about you. We were wrong about everything. Tae said nothing. He waited. The Council wishes to offer humanity anything you desire, Voss continued. Territories, resources, a permanent seat on the Council. Name your price, and it is yours. Tae looked around the chamber. Keth was there, his compound eyes fixed on the human delegation with something like respect. Consul Bryn wobbled nearby, silent for once. Representatives from dozens of species watched and waited for humanity's answer. This was the moment. 7 years ago, Tae had walked out of this chamber in anger and pride. Now he could take everything: revenge, power, dominance. The Council would give it to him. They owed humanity a debt they could never repay. He thought about Admiral Day, who had told Captain Gina that ideals were what separated civilization from savagery. He thought about the 18,000 humans who had died in the first battle, the 100,000 who had fallen in the 2 years since. All the blood and sacrifice and pain, they had not died for revenge. They had died because it was right. High Speaker, Tae said finally, we did not come back for revenge. We did not fight for power. We did not bleed for territories or resources or seats on your council. He stepped forward, his old bones aching, his tired eyes still clear. We fought because when we look at the stars, we do not see empires to conquer. We do not see species to dominate. We see neighbors. We see potential friends. We see a galaxy worth saving, even from itself.
Hey.
He stopped in front of Voss's throne. You ask what we want? Here is our answer. We do not want a seat on your council. We do not want to rule over others the way you ruled. We want to build something new, something better, a partnership of equals. A union where every species has a voice, regardless of how old they are or how long they have been sailing the stars. Voss stared at him. You would forgive us. After everything? Forgiveness is not what we are offering, Tay said. Forgiveness is what you must earn. We are offering you a chance, the same chance you denied us 7 years ago. A chance to prove that you can be better than you were. He extended his hand. Take it or leave it. But know this. If you take it, there will be no more mockery, no more tributes, no more masters and servants. We stand together, or we stand apart. For a long moment, Voss did not move. The chamber held its breath. Then, slowly, the High Speaker reached out and took Tay's hand. Together, Voss said quietly, we stand together. 10 years later, the Galactic Union replaced the old council. It was not perfect. No government ever is. There were disputes and arguments and disagreements. But there was also something new. Hope, cooperation, a genuine effort to do better than before. Humanity held no special rank in the Union. They demanded no tribute. They claimed no empire. They were simply members, like everyone else. But when young species looked to the stars and wondered who would help them find their way, they all told the same story, the story of a species that had been mocked and rejected, a species that had walked away from power when it was offered in chains, a species that had returned to save those who had wronged them, asking nothing in return. Strange creatures, these humans, short-lived, fragile, stubborn beyond all reason, but they were the ones who stayed, and that, in the end, was what mattered most. In a quiet garden on Earth, a memorial stood. It was simple. A wall of names carved in black stone. Admiral Li Day, Captain Yoon Jina, Commander, Choi Han, and 100,000 others who had given their lives for a galaxy that had once laughed at them. Ambassador Kim. Tay visited the memorial every year on the anniversary of the war's end. He was very old now. His hair was white. His hands trembled. But he still made the journey. He would stand before the wall and read the names. Each one a person. Each one a story. Each one a sacrifice. And he would whisper the same words every time. We stayed. We will always stay. That is who we are. Then he would go home. And the galaxy would keep turning, and somewhere out among the stars, a young species would look up and wonder if anyone would help them. And someone always would, because that was what humans did. They stayed.